Hello there, or should I say howdy? That'll make more sense in a second.
Howdy, partner!
But welcome back to my channel. My school has two big traditions that happen every year before the first day of school to welcome students and their families into our classroom. So today, I'm gonna talk through those traditions with you and share all of the details. Now, if you've been following me for the past 2 years, these are gonna sound very familiar, but if you are new here, I am gonna link some prior vlogs down in the description box so you can go back and see in real time on those days some of the things that I am doing. But I'm gonna try to break down Welcome Walk and Howdy, which are two big back to school traditions we have here at our school. It's basically how we meet our students and tell them that we are their teacher, and how our students come see our classroom and drop off their supplies before the first day of school. First of all, Welcome Walk. What is it and when does it happen? So in summary, Welcome Walk is how we as teachers are telling families that we are gonna be that student's teacher for the year. Welcome Walk is typically a 2 to 3 hour window of time where our entire staff is driving around our local community. We are knocking on our students' doors. We are greeting the families. We're giving them a couple of documents to get them started for back to school. And we are introducing ourselves. We typically take a picture and then we move on to the next house. In terms of when this takes place, it does depend on when the first day of school falls. This year, our first day of school is on a Wednesday, so our Welcome Walk is on Monday evening. However, if the first day of school is, say, a Tuesday, our Welcome Walk may be the week prior on Thursday or Friday. Typically, we try not to do it on Fridays just because that's a busy time for families. Now, if this is a brand new concept for you, it may sound a little bit crazy and you probably have some questions, so I want to talk through a couple of the logistics. First of all, this date is announced within our school community well in advance, so families know when Welcome Walk will be taking place and they can kind of plan ahead for it. That being said, not all of our students live right in our neighborhood. We do have students who live out of district, and we refer to them as transfer students. We do have a separate window of time for transfer students. Rather than going to their houses, they actually come here to our school, and we are all located around our gym or our cafeteria, and the transfer students have a window of time just before we go out into the community for Welcome Walk to come in and find out who their teacher is. So for example, on the Monday before the first day of school this year, we will have our transfer window period of time from, say, 4 o'clock to 4:30, and then by 5 o'clock, we're driving around the neighborhood to go introduce ourselves to our families that do live close to the school. Now, that being said, families have the option to opt out of a Welcome Walk and instead get an email or a phone call. Prior to Welcome Walk taking place, families receive a Google form that they can fill out, and they can say, hey, we're on vacation. Can you send us an email instead? Or we're not gonna be home during that time. Can you call us instead? Plus, they also can let us know if a certain window of time will be better. Say our Welcome Walk is from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., they could say, hey, it would be better for us if you came earlier in that window because we have a sports practice to get to at 6 o'clock. Now, as teachers, we're not always able to accommodate those requests, but we at least know in advance what would work best for the family, and we try to make it work. And again, if any families are not comfortable with us coming and knocking on their door, because I know some of you are curious about that, they can opt out. However, I will say, because this is a big school tradition, that rarely happens, and a majority of families really look forward to this. They will decorate their yards and their door, and it's just a big deal within our school community. So it's typically something that all the families are looking forward to. Now, if you're curious about this safety aspect for teachers, there are a couple of things that we do to ensure everyone's safety. This is all happening during the same window of time. So we are all driving around the community. In fact, we will constantly be passing each other. We also are all wearing the same shirt. So our PTA actually provides us with a new shirt each year. That is a shirt we will wear during Welcome Walk. That way, it kind of helps us identify each other, and it also helps families know that we are from our school. Also, we have a couple of rules surrounding Welcome Walk. First of all, you have someone else drive you. Now, that other person could be another staff member. So if that staff member doesn't have their own class of students, they will help drive other staff members, or it can be a friend or a family member. So Billy is typically my driver for Welcome Walk, and that way there's someone else with me at all times, but also it makes it easier for me because he will drive to the next house and just kind of park on the street or quickly pull into the driveway, and I can quickly hop out and go visit that house and then hop back in. And then finally, we do not go into any students' houses, which is always really sad because it never fails. There's a family who's like, come in, get, a drink, it's hot outside. But we typically just answer with, oh, I'm so sorry, I have a lot more houses to get to, but I can't wait to see you tomorrow at Howdy. And then finally, our admin assistant does not leave school until everyone is back. It's one of our duties. Once we have finished Welcome Walk, we have to call and say, hey, I'm done. And they do not leave until everyone has completed Welcome Walk. So now let's talk a little bit about what this looks like before, during, and after. Before Welcome Walk, I will get my roster, and one of the first things I do is I will pull up all of the students' houses on Google Maps and I will create my route. Obviously, I try to do it in a way that is most efficient. It doesn't always work out that way, but I actually like to plot each of the houses on Google Maps, and I just kind of start at the school and I find like a circular path-ish that I can follow, and then Google Maps will actually allow you to create like driving directions with multiple destinations. Usually it's capped at like 10, so I have to make multiple routes, but I will decide in advance the order in which I'm gonna go to all of the students' houses. From there, I make a spreadsheet. I'm gonna put a digital picture on the screen so you can see an example of what this would look like. This spreadsheet, I created digitally, but then I have it printed with me during Welcome Walk. I will actually list my students in the order that I plan to visit their houses. I will list the method, which means are they a transfer student and coming to me before I leave for Welcome Walk? Am I visiting their home, or am I gonna make a phone call or an email? If students have opted for a phone call or email, I can either send the email when I finish Welcome Walk or during the window in between when we're meeting with transfer students and Welcome Walk. I can also make the phone calls during that time, or with the emails, I typically just schedule it in advance to go out around the time that I'm starting that transfer student Welcome Walk time, because we don't want families to know in advance. They kind of know there's like this window that they're gonna find out, so we try to make the phone calls and send the emails during that same window of time. Also in the spreadsheet, I have that student's address listed just in case the Google Maps direction route thing is not working. I can just manually type in their address and I know where to go. And then I do have a section for notes. This is where I would put things that maybe families have noted on the Google form, like, hey, can you try to come before 6 o'clock? Or if there's something specific that I know about that student, or maybe how to pronounce their name, because once I get my roster, if there's any students that I'm like, ooh, I'm not really sure, I'll check with their third grade teacher so that I know in advance how to be able to pronounce their name. And then I'll also sometimes make notes about like tag. So if a student is in tag, that means I'm their teacher, but I'm not teaching them for math, and I don't want to confuse them if I go and I'm like, hey, I'm your teacher for everything this year. I just make sure I say, hey, I'm gonna be your teacher for reading, social studies, and science, and so will be your teacher for math. So now during Welcome Walk, as I mentioned, I would be wearing a shirt provided by PTA. I'm gonna bring that spreadsheet with me, print it out on a clipboard. That way, as I visit each house, I can check it off. Sometimes I go to a house and they don't answer, and then I may circle back at the very end. We don't have to do that. Like if we visited the house and they didn't answer, we can then just send an email or try calling them. But typically, if I can, I do like to circle back to that house. So having a spreadsheet helps me keep track of which families I've made contact with. So as I mentioned, you have someone drive you. So typically Billy will come meet me here at school. I will get into the car with all of my stuff. I start the route and he drives to the first house. When I get to a house, I'm usually hopping out of the car with a couple of things. I will have an envelope. It's one of those kind of smaller manila envelopes, like if you fold a piece of paper in half, it will fit inside. We receive those from our school with a couple of papers to place inside. In addition to the papers provided by our school, we are responsible for putting in our Meet the Teacher letter. So this is what my Meet the Teacher letter looks like. On the front is just a blurb about me, and I do have a QR code that links to my Amazon class wish list. At the bottom is information about our Howdy, which is the next back to school tradition I will talk about after this. On the back, I have a few more QR codes. Now, these are all example ones that I put in here, but we will link to two different forms. I link to a parent information form. This is a form that I personally create, and it's a way for me just to gather information from families and double check contact info, get any families that are interested in being a room parent, find out what that student's house is, and just kind of verify some of the information I have on hand. The other Google form is a departure form that is created by our school. Everyone in the school links to this form. Families are expected to fill it out prior to the first day of school so that we know their route for dismissal. And then I also link to a video. This is like a 2.5-minute video that I recorded over the summer, and it's just welcoming families into my classroom, giving them a little bit more information about me. But this time during Welcome Walk is short. I'm usually only at the house for 2 or 3 minutes, and it's such a blur, so I wanted to have a contact way for families to like see my face again, hear my voice again. Now, this QR code does actually work, and that link does go to my video, so you can see exactly what it looks like for families. Then I have a little blurb about what I call their homework. So I want my students to bring in a family photo. This is something that is displayed in my classroom on our what I call class fridge or family fridge. And then finally, they have an All About Me bag. So in addition to that envelope, I'm also giving them this All About Me bag. Now you'll notice everything is purple. It all kind of coordinates together. That way, if families have multiple students, sometimes it gets confusing of which teacher dropped off which supplies. So I tried to color code mine. But this is just a brown paper lunch bag, and I have stapled this little piece of paper to it, and it says, fill this bag with 3 items that tell about you. The items must fit inside the bag. The items can represent your culture, family, interests, hobbies, and/or favorite things. Bring it to school on the first day. So I explain this to families. I usually joke with students. I'm like, everything has to fit in the bag, except it can't be alive. You can't put your hamster in there, and they laugh, haha. But I will hand them this in addition to the envelope, and then finally, I will hand them the class keychain. So this is one of the gifts that I give my students for back to school. Everyone in my class gets one, and what I love is the fact that they can attach this to their backpack, to their pencil pouch, to their lunchbox before the first day, and it's just a way that we're already bonded and connected before the first day. I've shown these before, but it just says, you were the missing link in our class chain, love Mrs. Emerson, and then the keychain says, proud member of the 4 Emerson family. After I hand off those materials, I explain the Google Forms, and I explain the All About Me bag. I typically prompt them to take a picture, and I have 2 things with me for the picture. First, I have this expandable picture frame. I don't think it's gonna fit in the frame, but I had this made online. It says, proud new member of Mrs. Emerson's class family. And so I will hold this, and the student and I will take a picture inside of it. And in the past, I would also carry a little 4 gold balloon with me. However, Texas Heat is like, no, we're gonna deflate that balloon. That's not gonna work. So the past 2 years, the balloon never made it through all of the houses. This year, instead, I have this printed 4 balloon. Is that going the right way? Yes, it is. And I'm just gonna attach this to like a popsicle stick, and we're gonna use this as our little photo prop. But just to give you an idea of what it sounds like when I arrive at a student's house, I get out of the car, I'm carrying these things, I knock on the door, they answer, they're excited, and I usually start by saying, is there a 4th grader that lives here? Because sometimes, as I mentioned, I may not know how to correctly pronounce that student's name, and rather than saying it incorrectly, I kind of prompt them to give me their name. It doesn't work every time, but I try. So they will introduce themselves. I will usually shake their hand because we're big on communication skills, so making eye contact and really greeting people.
Buenos dias, Jaime.
In a friendly way. So I will say, hi, I'm Mrs. Emerson. I'm so excited that you were chosen to be in my class family this year. Now, before the first day of school, you do have a little bit of homework, and this is where I take out the folder. I show them what's inside. I show them the letter, and I talk about the QR codes. I talk about the bag, and I talk about bringing a family photo. And then usually that's when I can prompt and go, speaking of photos, can we get a photo together? And we will take the photo, and then I say, I can't wait for you to join us tomorrow morning for Howdy. Make sure you bring your school supplies, your Chromebook, your charger, your headphones, and we're gonna have a great first day of school. And that's it. So after Welcome Walk, I do let my admin assistant know that I am done. We don't have to go back to the school. Like technically, I could just drive home after that. I typically do come back to school, but we at least have to let them know that we are done Welcome Walk. Also, I have an email that is scheduled to go out. I will again put a little picture on the screen so you can see exactly what it looks like, but this email is a recap of the things that I talked to them about during Welcome Walk, as well as clickable links just to make it easier for families. And it's another point of contact and just another version of the information that they received, because again, that time goes by very, very quickly. And that is it for Welcome Walk. So now let's talk about Howdy. What is it and when does it happen? So Howdy is always the day before the first day of school. So again, this year, our first day of school is on a Wednesday. Welcome Walk is Monday night. Howdy is Tuesday morning. Howdy is essentially a time for students to come to school, to see our classroom, drop off their school supplies, get it all organized. That way they're set up and ready for the first day of school. Usually it's a 90-minute time period and they can drop in anywhere within that time period. And again, this is something that families know about in advance so they can plan for. Typically, I would say I have 90 to 100% of my students attend Howdy unless they're traveling or have another commitment during that time. Again, because this is a school tradition, most of the families, at least if they've been going to our school for many years, they know the routine, they know what they're supposed to bring. But I do have a blurb in my Meet the Teacher letter that I give them during Welcome Walk that explains what to bring. And that email that I send after Welcome Walk also has a reminder of what to bring with them. Typically, students show up with their backpack loaded with all of their supplies, or if they opted for one of our school supplies kits. So the year prior, students can order school supply kits. It will have everything they need for like 4th grade, and it's delivered directly to the classroom. If they opted in for one of those kits, then they just show up. They don't need to really bring their own supplies, but they are expected to bring their Chromebook charger, and typically their pair of headphones if they already have them. So again, let's talk about what happens before, during, and after Howdy. So before Howdy, I am setting up my classroom and specifically student desks for that Howdy event. So on student desks, I will have their name tag so they know where to come find their desk. I will have a Howdy checklist. Now, I actually prep these before the prior school year even ends because it doesn't really change that much from year to year, but essentially it tells students what to do with every piece of school supplies that they have. So it will tell them what things they need to label. For example, I have them write their name on their scissors using a Sharpie. It will tell them what to put in their pencil pouch, what to put in their cubbies, and then what to sort into bins on my table. As a little treat on their desk, I also have a snack. So these are the little Pringle cups that I prep to make look like cowboy hats. This is something I prepped at the end of the summer, but they turn out adorable. They are a lot of work because you have to like wrap a balloon around the Pringles cup, but I just love that it kind of fits our theme and it fits Howdy and it's just super, super cute. So they have the little Pringles cowboy hats that say saddle up partner for a stacktastic year. And then they also have a little bottle of water that I've attached a label to that just says, get ready to quench your thirst for learning or something cheesy like that. Then as I mentioned on my back table, I will have big neon bins that are labeled. Those are meant for students to organize their extra supplies. So for example, I will have them put one glue stick into their pencil pouch. The rest of the glue sticks will go into that bin. So throughout the year, when they need a new glue stick, I pull from that supply. I also set up a photo booth area in my classroom. I usually use my whiteboard because it's nice and clear at this point of the year, but I just put up a green kind of streamy background. I hang up a little banner and then I will prompt students in their checklist and on the slide that is displayed to take a picture with me. And these are all pictures that I put into my end of the year slideshow, so it's really fun to look back and see how much they've grown throughout the year. I also have some signs out with those same QR codes that were on the Meet the Teacher letter. In case any families have not yet filled out those forms, they can quickly scan them and get them completed before they leave. And then finally, before Howdy actually starts, I've been reviewing those forms that families have filled out, hopefully in advance, to make sure I know how that student is getting home, and I've reviewed any notes that the families have maybe left in there. Once again, I make myself a spreadsheet that I then print out and have with me during Howdy. So now let's talk about during Howdy. I do have a slide displayed with directions for students and their families to follow. It has a picture of me in case for some reason I've popped out into the hall. Hopefully they've already seen my face during Welcome Walk, but it's just a reminder of like, hey, I'm your teacher, this is what I look like. As families are coming in, I'm usually greeting them, but I will say, it gets hectic pretty fast because a lot of times it's the student, their family, maybe siblings are with them. I have students that I have taught prior years who are coming back to visit. The room gets very full, people are unpacking supplies. So I'm not always able to personally greet every single family that comes in, but at some point I make contact, have a conversation, and get to introduce myself again before they leave. If needed, I answer any questions or help, direct families as they unpack supplies, but usually with the checklist and the labeled bins, it's pretty clear what they have to do. And at the end of the checklist, I do prompt them to take a picture with me, and that's my kind of last point of contact. During that time, I take a picture. So we usually will stay and take a picture in front of the photo booth area, but I also have my clipboard, and that's when I'm verifying with families their way of dismissal. Hopefully they filled out the form in advance, so I can just go, oh, so-and-so is a car rider, and they'll say, yep, and I can check them off. But if for some reason they did not fill out the form, I make sure that they have done that, and I just verbally confirm with them so that I know how that student's getting home on the first day of school and how they're getting home the rest of the year, because sometimes it is different. So again, I'm gonna put on the screen what that checklist looks like, and I kind of filled it in with some fake information so you can see what it would look like for me. I'm usually checking off whether they have filled out the student info form, whether they've filled out the dismissal form. I highlight any that are missing so I know I can pay attention to those. I have a section where I can write notes. So for example, if that family has said, hey, I'm interested in being a room parent, I can talk to them about that. If that student maybe has a birthday, like on the day of Howdy or the next day or something, I can make sure that I comment on that. Or if there's any connections that I can make to them personally based on that student info form. One year I had a student who said that they did Taekwondo, and I was able to say, hey, I did Taekwondo too growing up, and just starting to make those connections. Now that hour and a half flies by. After Howdy is done, typically I'm kind of cleaning up my room. I've got trash from the supply kits and the packaging and things that students have opened up. So I try to consolidate all that for the custodians. And one of the main things that I make sure gets done before the first day of school is I will plug in all of their Chromebooks. Now this year I have splurged on a Chromebook cart, and I will be using my students' chargers. I used to separately put their chargers into labeled baggies, and that way if a student was gonna take home their computer, they would take the Chromebook and they would take their baggie with the charger. But this year the chargers will actually be plugged into the cart, so if they take it home, they will just unplug it and go. But I make sure that they all get plugged in so that they are nice and charged. We're not even gonna use them the first day, but I just like that system to already be in place. At that time, I will also review my spreadsheet and the Google Forms and see if there are any families that I need to personally reach out to so that I know that student's route for dismissal. So I will either send an email or make a phone call to say, hey, you know, I'm really curious how so-and-so is going home on the first day tomorrow. Could you please let me know? Because going into the first day, I wanna make sure I know how every single student is getting home. But that's it, that's our Howdy. And then typically we have the rest of that day to kind of finalize things, get ready for the first day of school the next day. I think what I love most about these traditions, besides the fact that it's just exciting, like I love Welcome Walk. I love the anticipation from both the teacher and the families. I think it's such a cool event. But I love the fact that we then have seen our students and their families for the most part twice before the first day of school. And I feel like it makes that first day of school so much smoother, and it's also less like anxiety inducing for both the teacher and students, because when they walk in, I'm like, oh, hey, you know, I feel like I already know them because I've made 2 different contacts. So I love these traditions, and I wanted to share just in case it's something that maybe you want to try to implement at your school. I know it can really vary from school to school. Trust me, I've taught in many different places, and I know that this model would not necessarily work everywhere, but maybe you can take certain elements of it to be able to make the beginning of your school year that much easier. But if you enjoyed this vlog, please give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you don't miss any future videos, because I am gonna have a first day of school vlog coming up. And let's see, for our comments for caffeine for this video, what is your favorite back to school tradition? Whether it's something that happens before the first day of school, during the first day of school, or maybe just during the first week of school. Leave a comment, I will randomly select one to receive a coffee gift card. As always, thank you for watching. I love you so much. Don't forget to put your positive pants on, and I will catch you in the next one.